She crossed my threshold uninvited, clipboard raised like a badge of authority, convinced rules protected her, until she realized the homeowner she trespassed against made careers out of dismantling abuse. Let me start from beginning. The house had always been quiet on weekday mornings, the kind of quiet that came from intention rather than accident. It sat at the end of a curved cul-de-sac, modest in size but meticulously maintained, with clean lines, neutral paint, and landscaping trimmed within the strictest guidelines of the Homeowners Association. Nothing about it suggested conflict. Nothing about it suggested vulnerability either. The community itself was governed by an HOA, known more for its obsession with uniformity than for neighborly warmth. Trash cans had to be hidden within hours. Grass height was measured with alarming seriousness. Holiday decorations were tolerated only within rigid calendar windows. Enforcement letters arrived faster than friendly welcomes. Over time, residents learned that the HOA board thrived on authority and ambiguity, especially when rules could be bent in favor of those wielding power. One board member in particular had developed a reputation. She was not officially titled as president, but she acted as though the position belonged to her by default. Her presence was unmistakable at meetings, inspections, and neighborhood walks, always armed with a clipboard, always scanning for violations. She believed herself to be the final interpreter of the bylaws, and she exercised that belief with confidence bordering on entitlement. On that morning, the house appeared empty. The driveway was clear, curtains were partially drawn. To her, it looked like an opportunity. The HOA rules mentioned inspections for exterior compliance, but they were vague enough to be abused. Somewhere in her mind, that vagueness transformed into permission. She stepped onto the porch without hesitation. The first boundary crossed was subtle, almost invisible. The second was the turning of the handle. The door opened. What followed was not an emergency. There was no leak, no fire hazard, no immediate danger. There was only curiosity masked as duty. She moved through the entryway with the confidence of someone accustomed to entering spaces without resistance. The clipboard came up, pen poised, as though the house itself were on trial. She noted the interior as she passed, forming judgments she had no authority to make. She wandered beyond the entry, her shoes crossing from tile to hardwood. Each step deepened the violation. Each second inside the home compounded the illegality of her actions. What she did not know was that the homeowner was not away. He had been working from a home office tucked just off the main hallway, a space filled with case files, law books, and framed degrees. His work required silence, concentration, and a deep familiarity with the limits of authority. For years, he had built a career challenging overreach, particularly when power was used to intimidate or discriminate. Property law and civil rights were not abstract concepts to him, they were daily tools. The sound that caught his attention was not loud, it was wrong. A footstep where none should be, a subtle shift in the air that suggested intrusion. Training took over before emotion. He moved toward the sound with caution, already mentally cataloging possibilities. When he saw her inside his home, the moment crystallized. There was no confrontation in the traditional sense. There was recognition, the kind that arrives when someone understands instantly and completely that a line has been crossed and cannot be uncrossed. The board member froze, caught mid-action, suddenly aware that the space was occupied and that her assumption of absence had been catastrophically wrong. She attempted to compose herself, adjusting posture, clinging to the authority she believed the HOA granted her. But authority does not extend past locked doors, and the law does not bend to clipboards. The homeowner did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The silence of the house did the work for him. In that silence, facts aligned. An unauthorized entry, no notice, no emergency, no consent. Each element stacked neatly into a framework he knew intimately. He observed everything: her location in the house, the path she had taken, the items she had glanced at, the duration of her presence. Every detail mattered, and his mind recorded them with professional precision. She retreated then, slowly, attempting to reverse the mistake without acknowledging it. She moved back toward the door, her confidence eroding with each step. The clipboard lowered, the pen stilled, The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed. What remained was not relief, it was resolve. Because what she saw as a routine assertion of power was in truth a violation of fundamental rights. And what she did not yet understand was that this house was not just a residence, it was occupied by someone who knew exactly how to respond. As the quiet returned, the homeowners stood still, already planning the next steps. Documentation would come first, then strategy, then consequences. The chapter closed not with anger, but with certainty. Something had been set in motion, and the HOA had no idea what it had just awakened. The story would not end at the door. The aftermath of the intrusion did not announce itself loudly. There were no immediate apologies, no official notices, no acknowledgement from the HOA. Instead, there was silence, the kind that often follows misconduct when those responsible hope it will be forgotten. The board member likely believed the incident could be minimized, reframed, or dismissed as a misunderstanding. That belief was misplaced. The homeowner's response unfolded with methodical precision. Every relevant detail was documented while memory remained sharp. Times, dates, and conditions were recorded. Security footage was reviewed, revealing her arrival, her entry, and her exit. The video did not lie, and it did not leave room for interpretation. The HOA bylaws were pulled from their folder and examined line by line. Sections regarding inspections were highlighted, annotated, and cross-referenced with state statutes. The absence of any provision allowing interior entry without notice or consent stood out starkly. Even emergency access was defined narrowly, and this situation fit none of those criteria. What made the situation more serious was not just the trespass, but the pattern. Over time, complaints had circulated quietly among residents. Selective enforcement, targeted scrutiny, rules applied unevenly depending on personal relationships, appearances, and perceived status. Individually, these complaints lacked teeth. Collectively, they suggested something more troubling. As a civil rights attorney, the homeowner recognized the early signs of systemic abuse. HOAs, while private entities, wielded significant power over residents' lives. When that power was used discriminatorily or without due process, it crossed into legally actionable territory. The board members' actions were not isolated, they were emblematic. A formal demand letter was drafted, not in haste but with deliberate clarity. It outlined the violation, cited relevant laws, and requested preservation of all HOA records related to inspections, complaints, and enforcement actions. This was not a threat, it was notice. The letter was sent to the HOA's registered agent, the board, and their legal counsel. Its tone was professional, restrained, and unmistakably serious. It made clear that the homeowner was aware of his rights and prepared to defend them fully. The response, when it came, was predictably defensive. The HOA attempted to frame the incident as a misunderstanding, suggesting that the board member believed she had implied authority. That argument unraveled quickly under legal scrutiny. Implied authority does not override explicit legal boundaries, especially where private property is concerned. More telling was the shift in tone that followed. The HOA's communications grew cautious. Meetings were postponed. Enforcement actions across the community slowed. The board member who had entered the home became noticeably absent from public-facing roles. Behind the scenes, the situation escalated. Records obtained through legal requests revealed inconsistencies in enforcement. Homes owned by certain residents were inspected more frequently. Minor violations were pursued aggressively against some, while others received warnings or exemptions. Demographic patterns emerged that were difficult to ignore. The homeowner expanded the scope of his response accordingly. What began as a trespass case evolved into a broader examination of discriminatory practices. The law provided mechanisms for accountability, and he intended to use them. Community members began to take notice. Whispers turned into quiet conversations. Some residents reached out privately, sharing their experiences. They had felt powerless, intimidated by fines and threats. Seeing someone stand up to the HOA shifted something fundamental. The board, sensing the changing tide, attempted damage control. Policies were hastily reviewed. Training was mentioned, apologies were discussed but never formally issued. The board member at the center of the incident was quietly removed from certain responsibilities, though not publicly reprimanded. It was too late for half measures. The homeowner filed a formal complaint with the appropriate state agency, outlining the trespass and the pattern of abuse. He prepared a civil action that addressed not only the illegal entry, but the broader civil rights implications. The filing was comprehensive, supported by evidence, and grounded firmly in law. The HOA's insurance carrier became involved. Legal counsel advised caution. The board faced a reality it had long avoided. Power without accountability invites consequence. As weeks passed, the community changed. Enforcement notices dwindled. Board meetings grew tense. The authority that once felt absolute now appeared fragile. For the homeowner, the process was never about revenge. It was about restoring balance. HOAs existed to maintain communities, not dominate them. When they forgot that distinction, the law existed to remind them. The stage was set for resolution, but resolution would not come quietly. The final reckoning would require transparency, reform, and acknowledgement of wrongdoing. And the board member who had once walked into a stranger's home believing herself untouchable was about to learn the true cost of that belief. The conclusion of the conflict arrived not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a cascade of consequences that reshaped the community. Legal processes moved at their own pace, indifferent to ego or reputation. What mattered were facts, evidence, and the law's unwavering demand for accountability. The HOA's legal counsel recommended settlement discussions early, recognizing the strength of the case. The trespass alone carried significant liability. Combined with documented patterns of discriminatory enforcement, the potential exposure grew exponentially. Insurance carriers pressured the board to mitigate losses. Silence was no longer an option. The settlement negotiations were structured, formal, and revealing. Terms included not only compensation for the unauthorized entry, but mandatory reforms to HOA practices. Clear inspection protocols were required. Notice provisions were strengthened. Board members were subjected to training on property rights and fair housing laws. Oversight mechanisms were introduced to prevent future abuse. Perhaps most significant was the acknowledgement. Without admitting liability in name, the HOA agreed to language that recognized improper conduct and committed to corrective action. For a board accustomed to unchecked authority, this represented a profound shift. The board member who initiated the incident resigned quietly. There was no farewell announcement, no public explanation. Her departure was noted only in meeting minutes, a footnote to a much larger lesson. Authority, once abused, does not survive scrutiny. The community felt the impact almost immediately. Residents reported a renewed sense of security. Enforcement became consistent and predictable. The fear that once accompanied HOA notices dissipated, replaced by a cautious optimism. The homeowner returned to his routine, his home once again a place of quiet purpose. The office remained filled with case files, but this chapter of his life closed with a sense of completion. He had not sought the role of reformer, yet circumstances had demanded it. The story spread beyond the neighborhood, shared online and among advocacy circles. It became